Alright, so I have successfully done everything that I intend to do for Pokemon Red. So the question is, what now? What do I do next? Well, I am here to give you, the audience, a few choices on what I think would be fun for my next LP. First off, we have Pokemon Crystal. Now, about partway through Pokemon Red, I realized that I should have started with Yellow, the third version. So, for my further Pokemon games, I will be doing the third version, with the exception of if I get around to the remakes, which I don't think I will, or Black and White, in which case I intend to do Black both times at the moment. With Pokemon Crystal, I already have an idea as to how I might go about it, but it's been so long since I played a Gen 2 game that I won't remember things as well as I remembered Pokemon Red. I'm also playing through Soul Silver at the moment, so I apologize if I do end up getting confused between the third version and the remake. Next is Chrono Trigger. This is an absolutely beautiful game, and I intend to do the SNES version of it if I LP it. I was going to do the PlayStation version, however, I heard that there are insufferable loading times tied with it, and really the anime-style cutscenes are the only thing that's truly added. I would also like to do the DS version and all of its bonus features, but for one, I can't record from my 3DS at the moment, and secondly, they change a lot of things that make Chrono Trigger rather iconic, like removing Frog's Old English accent. However, in total, this is an absolutely marvelous game, which I do think deserves a spotlight at some point. Thirdly, Chrono Cross. Now, I would like to do Trigger first, however, the two are relatively disconnected, despite what it may seem. Chrono Cross, for the most part, does not very closely tie into Trigger. There are a few elements shared between the games to make it a very loose sequel, but I will be playing it from a standpoint where it will be disconnected from Trigger, with the exception of places where Trigger has a very obvious influence. This might be an absolutely terrible LP because you get to hear my actual voice acting skills, unlike I have with Red, since Chrono Cross is well known for most of the unique characters, I should say, having a very distinct accent that's written into their lines. And I've heard very mixed reactions to when I start reading in depth like that. However, it's also a rather complex game at some points, so there might be episodes where all I'm doing is explaining things. This also carries over to Trigger and some of its story elements, though not to the same degree as I will feel that I should with Cross. Finally, Fire Emblem. Now, this is another game that I haven't actually beaten before, and actually have not even beaten the first of 3 stories, so I'll be playing this one mostly blind. Thus, with the exception of, I'd say, the first half of the first story arc, you get to see me legitimately react to the game's elements, instead of just replying to them or explaining things as I normally would. After all, I'm sure you realized with my Red LP that when I was legitimately reacting to an event instead of already knowing it was going to happen, I was a lot more animated about it. like with that last episode with the Elite Four and Champion fights. For those of you who've seen it. If not, well, if you haven't seen that episode of my Red LP, then I'm guessing you either didn't like how I'm going about the Red LP, or you haven't quite gotten to that point yet. In which case, if it's the latter, I suggest finishing it. And finally, maybe there's another game that you think I'd be good at doing. Perhaps there's something that might be fun for you to see me do. I've had one person suggest Persona 4. However, because I don't know the storyline to the Persona series very well, it's really all dependent as to if and which game I do on how closely tied each game's story is to the other one. If it's very loosely tied, like Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross are, I have no problem starting partway through. However, if there are very distinct story elements that are connected together, like most story-based series, then I'll be starting with Persona 1 and working my way upwards from there. Now, if you have any suggestions to what game I should play, the way I continue LPing, really anything, then I'd suggest you leave a comment below. I'll leave in the description what systems I can record, and so on and so forth. Also, feel free to ask questions if you want to know something about me or my LPing style. This is Deexo, over and out.